Meeting looks a little different due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We're holding our meeting via video teleconference. Because the city council has declared a local emergency for the COVID-19 pandemic, state statutes allow us to hold our city meetings remotely. While we aren't meeting in person, we want to make sure the public can participate, excuse me. If you've joined the Zoom meeting, you'll notice that you're muted. We have a moderator on the call who will unmute those who wish to speak during the public comment portions of the meeting. Public comments will be reserved for visitor presentations, public hearings, or special circumstances determined by the commission. Once we reach those parts of the agenda, I will ask if there are any public comments. If you wish to speak and have joined the meeting by computer or tablet, please click on participants on the bottom of your screen and then select the raise hand icon. If you wish to speak and have joined the meeting by phone, please press *9 and raise your hand. Once your hand is raised, the moderator will announce your name or phone number and unmute your line. Please remember that public comment is provided at the discretion of the commission and is meant to provide productive discourse on topics related to the city of Chaska. Speakers shall refrain from comment or behavior that is deemed disorderly, derogatory, obscene, indecent, or off topic. Any person engaging in such speech or action may be muted or removed from the meeting. Those of you watching online or on Comcast Channel 15, please be aware of the following. Some of our planning commissioners, city staff, and presenters are participating in the meeting remotely. There is a delay between the live meeting and the online and cable broadcast, and all commission actions will be taken by roll call vote. We're working hard to make sure that your voice can be heard while we do our best to protect everyone's health and safety. Thank you for your patience and constructive feedback as we work through this unprecedented situation. Thank you. And now time for the roll call. Liz, would you please?
Yes, I can. Commissioner Brass?
Here.
Cross?
Here.
Lacey?
Mute. Here.
Olson?
Here.
Riley?
Here.
Seiler?
Here.
Bobby?
Here.
Urbanski?
Here.
And Chairperson Dalkey.
Here. All right, next on the agenda is to adopt the agenda. Has everybody had a chance to review?
Yes.
I move to adopt.
Motion by Commissioner Bovee.
I'll second.
Commissioner Seiler, second.
Thank you. Liz, roll please.
Brass?
Here. Yep. Aye.
Cross?
Aye.
Lacey?
Aye.
Olson?
Aye.
Riley?
Aye.
Seiler?
Aye.
Bobby?
Aye.
Urbanski?
Aye.
And Chairperson Dalkey.
Aye. Next is our visitor presentation portion of the agenda. Is there anyone, I guess, on the line that has anything they'd like to present that is not on tonight's agenda? Kevin, have you heard anything?
I do not see anyone for visitor presentation.
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is to approve the previous meeting minutes. We'll approve the July 8th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review those?
Yeah.
We have.
All right, I will take a motion to accept those.
Susan Cross will present a motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting.
Thank you.
Urbanski will second.
Thank you very much. Liz, roll please.
Brass?
Aye.
Cross?
Aye.
Lacey?
Aye.
Olson?
Aye.
Riley?
Aye.
Seiler?
Aye.
Bovee,
Aye.
Urbanski,
Aye.
and Chairperson Delkey.
Aye. We have no items on the consent agenda tonight, so we will go right to our action items. 7.A is a public hearing to recommend the approval of the preliminary plat and rezoning for Pioneer Vista Lennar PC number 2020-15. Liz, would you please get us going?
Yes, I can. I'm gonna share my screen here. Can everyone see that okay?
Yep.
Perfect. So like Chairperson Dalkey mentioned, we have a preliminary plat and rezoning application for the Pioneer Vista project proposed by Lennar. So to give you an idea of where the site is located, I've highlighted in the orange triangular shape here on this aerial site exhibit. But to refresh everyone where the site is located, Pioneer Trail abuts the property on the north side. We have the Twin Cities and Western Railway that abuts the property on the south side. Clover Ridge development is also just south of the railway. Additional residential development is just to the north, and then some rural residential property to the west here. So we have Clover Ridge Drive that basically provides the western edge of this overall site. So in terms of a background of this site, it does go all the way back to 2000, the year 2000, when the Clover Ridge neighborhood was being planned. This site in particular was looked at for multifamily development. No formal approvals were made at that time, but it was always anticipated that this property would be developed. So it was back in May of this year that the concept plan was approved. So they're in their second step of the land use process for their preliminary plan. So their current request is for preliminary plat approval, which would encompass the construction of a 54-unit townhome development. And in addition to that, they are rezoning the property from its current zoning district rural and rezoning it to a planned residential district, specifically PRD 76. This is kind of a existing conditions understanding of the site. So the site is highlighted in red here. It's approximately 17 acres in size, just a little bit under that. And then when you exclude kind of the natural creations on the site, such as the wetland, you get about 13 acres that are developable. So mainly kind of situated on the northern side of the site. The wetland is about 3.5 acres in size, and again, kind of encompasses a majority of the central portion of the site. And they do plan to preserve that with this project. They also did a tree survey back in 2017 and called out a majority of small cedar trees that are mainly situated kind of in the central portion near the northern edge of the site. And these are small caliber trees, about 1 to 2 inch caliber in size. And then you have some scattering of other trees kind of in and around the wetland area and along the edge of the railway. There's also an existing curb cut just 400 feet south of the Pioneer Trail intersection, so they will be utilizing that as the entrance into the overall development. This is the preliminary plan that's proposed, and if you can remember the concept plan, it's not too different than what was proposed at that time. There were a couple smaller revisions made to kind of the layout of the site, just based on the needs of the project. So the site or the project did get pushed, or the units did get pushed a little bit north and west to account for an amenity area on the eastern side. And this was meant to be able to capture the size of the amenity area or open usable space area that they need to provide for a townhome development. So in total, they're proposing 54 townhome units, which was the same that they proposed during their concept plan. There are 11 buildings total, 3 of which are on the north side of this proposed street, and then 8 of them on the south side. Let's see here. One thing to note is they are providing a sidewalk on the south side of the street here that would kind of connect into a trail system and provide maintenance access as well to the stormwater pond on the south side. But getting back to the units, they are proposing them as owner occupied units. So each of these will be separate lots that will be privately owned by each homeowner. And then with the street itself, the other big change from the concept plan is that they did change this to a public street versus a private street. So in the beginning, they did opt for a private street just because it does give a smaller width compared to a public street. But with private streets, you do need to provide private utilities, which the homeowners association for this project just couldn't bear the cost of private utilities. So that is why they switched to a public street. So they'll be proposing public utilities with a public street in this new preliminary plan. And then as you can see, there's only one access into the site, which will provide termination from a cul-de-sac on the east side there. So again, this will be the singular entrance and exit into the site. I mentioned that the stormwater pond for the overall project is on the south side here. The usable open space amenity area is also proposed kind of on the southeasterly side as well. And this is a change from before. I think they were situating in between some buildings, but they wanted it to be a larger space, plus have it be a little bit separated or private from the actual unit so that it doesn't become any type of nuisance for the neighbors being so close together. So they did opt to put it on the eastern side here to kind of gain the most amount of space. So they are proposing a fire pit, some seating area, a grill area with some picnic tables, and then some open area for kids to utilize for playing soccer or other recreational sports. I also want to note that this plan kind of gives you a conceptual idea of what they're proposing for the landscaping as well. So they will be utilizing some of the existing tree edge here for screening against the railway, but they'll also be incorporating additional plantings in this area to kind of provide some screening and some buffering from the railway. And the same is for the north side for those 3 units that are closer to Pioneer Trail. They will be utilizing some existing vegetation on this corner, but they will also be incorporating a pretty healthy amount of additional vegetation in the form of deciduous and coniferous plantings. So we did request that they put together a couple section drawings just to give us kind of a understanding of the relationship between both the road and the railway with the project site. So the top section is cut through this portion of the site. So giving you that relationship between Pioneer Trail and those first 3 units. So as you can see, Pioneer Trail does sit a little bit farther up or higher than the actual project site. So the existing trees and the additional plantings that they'll put there will help to kind of bring some screening and buffering to that heavily utilized roadway. And then the bottom section drawing is the relationship between the railway and the amenity area, plus the kind of first or closest unit or building to the railway. And as you can see, the railroad does sit lower than the actual site itself. It's about 10 feet of depression for the railroad compared to kind of the amenity area, and then to the edge of the nearest building on that property. And again, they'll be utilizing some existing vegetation that's currently within the railway right-of-way, but they'll also be incorporating their own vegetation too to kind of help enhance the vegetative edge there. They've also incorporated a tree preservation plan to give you an understanding of kind of what will be saved with this project. So as you can see in this drawing, everything in red will be removed. And a lot of, again, what's being removed are those smaller cedar trees, 1 to 2 inch in caliber, which kind of sit in the center of the site where the street and all of the buildings will go. All of the trees within the wetland will remain since the wetland is staying intact. And then there will be a couple trees that will be taken out with the stormwater pond proposed on the south side. But they have noted that the trees that were surveyed on the south side or easterly side will remain as a part of that tree edge to kind of provide that nice vegetative edge for the site. And then here's the landscape plan, just to give you an understanding of the healthy amount of trees and vegetation that they will be adding to the site. So they will be proposing a layer of deciduous and coniferous plantings along this north edge, which will be a nice buffer from Pioneer Trail. They'll do some boulevard plantings as well, and then they'll add some additional trees, coniferous trees closer to the building edge, and then a couple along the stormwater pond. And then here's a couple photos. We've also included the architecturals in your packet, but these are kind of the more realistic visuals of what they're proposing for the buildings. And these have been constructed in other Twin Cities areas. So again, these are what you would consider your typical townhome building. Again, 54 total units that'll be owner occupied. Lennar has stated kind of a general starting point for these units at about $310,000 to $320,000 in value. They'll range in size from 1,700 up to 1,800 square feet. These will be 2-story above grade units, which will offer 3 bedrooms, 2 to 3 bathrooms, and then 2 car garages for each of the units. Just one other mention, one of our comments just based on the overall plan is potentially adding additional pedestrian movement around the ponding area for the amenity center. Or amenity area. They do meet our size requirement for a townhome building, but adding additional movement around the stormwater pond would be beneficial for this area. And it doesn't have to be paved movement. It can certainly be something more passive, like a mulch trail. So that's one thing of note and comment that we'll want the applicant to further look at in their final. So with that, we are asking you tonight to make a motion to recommend approval of the preliminary plat for Pioneer Vista, and that's based on the conditions that are listed in the staff report. And then you're also making a second motion tonight to recommend approval of the rezoning from rural to planned residential district number 76. I'm happy to answer any questions. I do know the applicant is also in the audience too, if you have any initial questions for them, but I'll open it up to the Planning Commission for that.
All right, thank you very much, Liz. Any questions from the commission before we open up the public hearing?
I just have a quick question for Liz. Can you tell me that has the fire department reviewed the turnaround radius in the cul-de-sac, and are they comfortable with it?
Yes. So with any land use application we get in, the fire department does review those and provides any comments if there's any changes that are needed. So they are comfortable with the turnaround that's provided in the cul-de-sac.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, Liz, I have a question as well. Could you go to the landscape plan again?
Sure.
So my question or inquiry is just how comfortable are we with the visibility of the residents leaving this, not really being able to see Pioneer Trail, it looks like, with the trees that are along the road? I guess is the speed limit there 35 on that Clover Ridge Drive?
I can't remember what the speed limit is, but due to this starting to kind of depress down here, the sight vision triangle should still be maintained or unobstructed with what they're proposing.
And then, yeah, and then it's 400 feet from the center line of Pioneer to the curb cut in?
From the top of the curb here, yes.
Okay, so we don't have concerns right now on visibility here. We think this is a safe plan for the intersection of the road.
Correct.
Okay.
Commissioner Urbanski, I've got a question. Liz, could you pull up the pictures of the what the final product might look like there? There
Yep.
you go. Last time, if I remember right, we looked at the rear of these homes and talked about trying to do something a little bit more architecturally pleasing there, so that when we start putting that many homes in a row, it's going to look like one big wall going down the road there. Were there any discussions on that?
Yeah, so what you see is basically what they're going to apply for 360-degree architecture. So really what we're trying to grasp or encourage is making sure that this is all not one singular blank vinyl canvas. So usually providing 4-inch window trim helps, using band boards to dissect levels of the building, using color change as well, and then incorporating gables with some articulation in those is typically what we look for a 360-degree design. So what they're proposing here is consistent with what we typically ask for on those rears.
I think the fronts look really, really nice on them, and the backs I'm just not super impressed with, but okay, thank you.
And I'll kind of piggyback. This is Commissioner Olson. I have a also on the back side of it, and that was my concern in the concept phase, which was the wall of buildings. So now that they've changed where that the amenity lot is, now you literally have the 4 biggest units boom to boom right next to each other. So you really are getting that wall of backside. And then you also have the elevation change. If you go back over to the landscape plan, Liz, the elevation change within what they have planned there, how are those trees going to help shield or present any kind of softness to the backside? Because those trees are planted, looks like 30. I mean, how much of a difference is it between the houses and where those trees are going to be planted? I mean, is it going to be enough size-wise to create a softness for the backside of those? Because as you come over the railroad tracks on Clover Ridge Drive, that's the only thing you're going to see is look across the wetlands, and you're just going to see the wall of buildings. And my other question is just with the last unit by the cul-de-sac, is that unit set back far enough? It seems like it's pretty close to the cul-de-sac for distance for the very last unit. Just wondering on that.
Mhm. Yep, all of the units are set back at least 20 feet from the right of way. So that's from the edge of the sidewalk, basically. So they're all meeting that 20-foot setback requirement. And then with the landscaping piece, I mean, when this first goes in, it's obviously not going to have that rich and lush look that you typically see in a well-established neighborhood, but ultimately over time this edge will get very filled in as the years go on. But I also think it'll be important for the applicant to speak to that too, kind of what their overall vision is for that edge.
Because is there any option of being able to change the angles of the buildings themselves? Because obviously you've got 4 of them that pretty much have the same angle. I mean, something needs to be done there, because they literally, they're just right there on the same plane. So it's just the wall of buildings. And yeah, the front sides look great, and I think that's the part where it's like they do look good from the front side, but from somebody that lives in the area, that's the only thing you're going to see is the backside, because you have to go all the way around to Pioneer Trail to actually see the front side, where you're really only going to see the backside. So that's why I feel it's just as important as the front.
Definitely. Well, I think that'll be an important piece for the applicant to address tonight.
Liz, this is Susan Cross. I also have questions. They provided in the packet various photos, and in photo 56 and 63, I have comments. I don't know if you can pull them up or if they're not there or what, but I can comment on those.
Let me see if I can.
These are finished buildings that they have built, and they sent photos to show what their workmanship is. And I really have comments on 2 of them.
Okay. And you said they were what pages again? I can see if I can.
56 and 63. That's how they came up on my iPad. I don't know how they would come up otherwise. That's one.
This one?
This one. This is one of them. I don't know if we're going to have any grading like this, but that escape window to me in this house is totally unacceptable to have the grading be like that. So you have a window that is basically a mandatory window in a bedroom as an escape for a fire. And that's right in that corner there. And that's, to me, is very unacceptable also. And as I say, I don't know the grading. We're going to be into various gradings and are in the process. And there's going to be walkouts and there's going to be lookouts. And I'm just saying, if anything ends up being like that, that's totally unacceptable.
But
you shouldn't have to have that. In the other one,
Susan, before you go on,
yes,
you're saying it's unacceptable, but could you articulate what about it is unacceptable? So, I mean, if the applicant wants to do something, just saying it's unacceptable isn't a good direction for them.
Yes. What bothers me so very much is that they obviously did a whole bunch of grading, but they brought it up very tight here. And I understand what the fire rules are and how you're supposed to get out of a basement. But to me, they're changing the land already in grading, why do they end up having to have that? That isn't even a lookout. That's just an escape window. To me, that's unacceptable. I realize fire codes would accept that, but the amount of grading that they're going to be doing in this project, to me, would, for them to leave that like that is unacceptable. That's what it is. I realize that's just me, but they are going to be doing a lot of grading in this project, and there will be lookouts and there will be walkouts, and I'm hoping none of the lookouts have any type of window like that. The other thing that I have on 63 on my iPad, which is a little bit further on, one more yet. Here, we asked to have the driveway separate. They put two townhouse driveways together. It creates a world of heat to have blacktops. On our plans, they are all separate in here. And I'm wondering if indeed we're going to be enforcing, or is that part of the deal that they're indeed going to be separate for each townhouse, since these are sold houses. What I have seen with townhouses that have a strip between two houses, the strip, whatever was originally planted there, isn't there anymore, and it might be rocks and it might be weeds. And I'm glad in this landscape plan, they're not putting any trees in the middle, and have the spring snow crabs at the end, but still there's bare room for it. I'm just saying, are we going to end up having this type of driveway or what is shown in the plan? That's why I brought this one up. And I'm done.
Well, I think to answer that question, basically what you see on the site plan does show separate driveways between each unit. So not the combined, but most of the landscaping or between the driveways is just the sod.
It'll croak. It's too hot.
Well, I'm sure Josh can also speak to kind of what their experience with that is and how they tend to maintain it. So, because it will be the responsibility of the HOA to maintain it and make it grow, basically.
Right, anyone else before I open up the public hearing? And Liz, you said the developer has joined us?
Yes, so I don't know if you would like him to just kind of address some of the comments that have already been received.
Yeah, why don't we do that? That might help answer any questions that the public hearing might bring up. So you said it was Josh, right?
Yep, Josh Metzer.
Oh, Kevin, is Josh, is he on?
He is, yep.
Oh, all right, there he is.
Good
Okay,
evening.
Josh, I don't know, did you jot down and did you keep track of the questions that were addressed to you? And
I did.
all right,
So,
the floor is
good evening.
yours, sir.
Good evening, Chair Dalkey and members of the Planning Commission. Liz, thank you for the very thorough report. Nothing much to add on the overall plan. So I guess a couple of the items that came up was architecture on the rear of the buildings. I guess a few of the things that we're doing to, I guess, help with that is we are planting I think I counted 44 trees along, in between Clover Ridge Drive and the rear of these townhomes. So yeah, as Liz pointed out, the first year or two, these are going to be newer trees, and it's not going to be fully filled in. But as we get 3 or 4, 5 years into this, these are going to be trees that have grown quite fully, and it'll be a nice landscape barrier. Also, all of these units come with a deck, because all of these back up to the wetland and back up to Clover Ridge Drive will be walkouts. As that photo of the 2 buildings that indicate, each of these will have a deck. So that'll add some additional elements to the elevations. We also will, as the staff report suggests, we will have a color change between the bottom 2/3 to the top third. We'll have a color change. We'll use 8-inch band board. We do provide 4-inch window trim on all elevations, and so the rear elevations do have dormers. So we really do think that all of these items combined will make for a nice setting. And furthermore, the 4 buildings that are in a straight line together are the furthest from Clover Ridge Drive. They're anywhere from, I believe, approximately 350 to 500 feet from Clover Ridge Drive. You'll be looking over a wetland. You'll be looking over, there's existing trees in that wetland as well that don't show up here as well in the landscape plan. But I think there's 50 some trees spread throughout that wetland, in addition to the 40 some trees we'll be planting. So we're getting close to 100 trees, 350 to 500 feet distance from Clover Ridge Drive, plus the architectural elements that we'll be adding. We believe, we'll make for a nice community. As far as grading goes and egress windows, obviously with the walkouts, we will not have any egress windows. And the 3 buildings on the north side of Pioneer Court were previously shown as lookouts. As we got into the grading plan and dirt balancing, stormwater modeling, we actually went with a decision that those 3 buildings will be slab on grade. So they will not have basements, thus there will not be any egress windows. So there won't be any issues with that. And driveways. The plan does show separate driveways, but we do, as was shown in the photos, which were taken from Maple Grove community. So a lot of times, Liz, maybe if you can go to the individual buildings showing the landscaping around. I think it's sheet 45 on, I don't know if it's 45 on yours.
To pull it up on a separate.
It'd be the one right before the color site plan. So yeah, you can see, so the corner units have entry doors on the outside corner. And then the middle units have adjacent front door entries in the middle there. So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll combine driveways for 2 units together. One of the reasons being maintenance of that strip in between. If we were to separate them, obviously plants aren't going to grow. They're going to die. Grass isn't going to grow. You've got maybe 2 feet in between there. And by putting, a gap in there with rocks would probably be the landscaping that will be put in there. It also becomes a maintenance issue with snow removal. You'll have rocks being strewn about, and it's just cleaner and better for maintenance purposes to sometimes combine 2 units driveways into one. So if city code would allow for it, that may be what we want to do. And why it was shown on the plan as separate driveways for each unit, not sure. That may just have been our engineer, consulting engineer, showing that as maybe a standard way that he shows driveways. But we may look to, and we could show it on our final plans at final plat if that's the way we go. But it may be combined driveways for 2 units. And I believe that was all of the other comments that I had. But otherwise, yeah, we're excited about the project. We're happy that our engineer was able to get a public street to work so that we don't have to have a private street with the HOA managing the utilities. So this way it's public. And yeah, by squeezing some of the buildings, further to the west and north, we were able to shorten the length of the cul-de-sac, which will obviously be less maintenance for the city, but also gave us more open space on that east end for some community amenities and gathering space. And I guess the only other item I'd mention is the extension of a mulch trail around the wetland. After reading the staff report, I did ask our engineer if that would be feasible, and he said yes, that they could make some sort of mulch trail around that stormwater pond work. So that will likely be added to our plan.
Before we go on, Kevin, I got a question. Does the city have any direction versus the single driveway or the combined driveway?
I think I wouldn't disagree with Josh. If you're going to have a space between those driveways, have it some distance that's meaningful.
Yeah.
When you have that 1 or 2 foot strip, it is typically you'll see that they do put sod in at first and then that dies and then they go to rock and then 10 years later it gets paved over just because it is a headache, and then it just doesn't look right because of different colors and pavement and all that other stuff. If you've only got that small strip, it isn't adding that much asphalt to that area, and that would, to me, seem to be an appropriate solution. I do, on the drawing that is up right now, that middle space is significant enough that you can have, something there, but the one on either side of it, you'd probably be better served, and the residents who move in there and the homeowners association who has to take care of it would probably be better served if that was just pavement.
I agree as well. All right. We will open up the public hearing at 7:42. Kevin, go ahead and I guess get us going with any comments from the audience.
Yep, we have Jeremy with his hand raised. Jeremy, go ahead.
Good evening, Commission, and Josh. I'm happy to see things moving forward and excited to see this development continuing on. I do have a few questions tonight for the Commission as well as for Josh representing Lennar. I'll separate my questions out, and first in my responsibility as president of the Jonathan Association, and then separately my questions as a affected homeowner. My home is on Romeo Court and my backyard will overlook this development. So I want to be clear in my representation. So my first question is on behalf of the Jonathan Association and really the development of Clover Ridge. So Liz, you mentioned that part of this plot in 2000 was designed to be developed as part of the Clover Ridge area, which encompasses all of Jonathan neighborhoods. And I'm just questioning if the Commission has an informed opinion on if this development should be part of that Clover Ridge neighborhood as it was originally designed.
I mean, I guess I can answer that just on behalf of the Planning Commission, but the Planning Commission doesn't have a requirement to authorize the development to be a part of the Jonathan Association. Those are typically a private communication between the developer and the associations to determine whether or not they would be a part of Jonathan. But there's no obligation from the Planning Commission side that would require them to say that they need to be a part of the Jonathan Association.
Yeah, and I appreciate the clarification. I wasn't really asking if it was a requirement, but more of if there was an opinion for the Planning Commission on if this community should be developed in the Clover Ridge neighborhood as part of the Jonathan.
I, as a member of the commission, don't have a I wouldn't want to steer direction one way or the other. I believe it would be between the Jonathan Association and the developer. If they can come to some sort of an agreement. The city's not involved in that, and therefore I don't believe the planning commission's involved in it.
Okay.
Jeremy, just from my standpoint as an individual commissioner, I think that that's the wrong approach for the city of Chaska. That we're unique with the Jonathan Association, and it's a pretty significant portion of the residents within the community, and to take a hands-off approach on a development by development basis in the long term, the big picture is short-sighted. That really the health of Jonathan is in the best interest of the health of Chaska, and not only just the residents within Jonathan, but the overall residents of our city. Because one way or another, all of the infrastructure and the amenities that are Jonathan you have to be perpetuated in the future.
Thank you.
I guess this is Susan Cross. I disagree with David, partially because of the uproar that has happened over the years about certain areas of the Jonathan Association that felt they were horseshoed into the Jonathan Association. Now, I got to preface this. When I say over the years, I'm talking 40 type years. I've got a long history in Chaska. Certain areas felt they were horseshoed into Jonathan to provide a moneyed cash green type help to the association. I would rather have each area have a chance to decide if indeed they fit well within the association, because there are some definitely areas that they fit well. They're close, they're near the amenities. It's a good blend, but I don't believe that it should be the city's suggestion. It should be between the developer and the Jonathan Association. I'm done.
Thank you, Susan. Any other comments?
Jeremy, are you finished?
No, I've got a few questions just on the development side of things as a homeowner that I'd like to follow up with as well.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Great. So my first question is really in concern to the amenities and the decision to not include a playground. If Lennar's HOA team has decided to not join the association, the Jonathan Association, the park that they're referencing as a selling point is it's mainly a community park, which is nearly a mile away. When you're targeting first-time home buyers and small families, a park that's a mile away, it's a stretch for me to think that that's an amenity for a small family like that. And I fully expect to see the children of this community are going to come down and utilize Juliet Park, which is right across the street from my house. And so I'm very concerned that Lennar is not going to include a playground or a tot lot of any sort of an amenity when you're targeting multi-unit families that are really going to be small families with likely little kids. And I know that Josh referenced that they're in their years of experience. They don't really see that being utilized as a long-term asset, which I can understand. But in the short term, over the next 10 years, If they're not members of the Jonathan, I don't want to be policing the park out front to chase kids away. You know, that's part of a benefit of being part of the Jonathan Association. So again, this comes to one of those points that I think, Susan, it was great that you referenced that, you know, we don't want anybody to be horseshoed in. I don't want any of my neighbors to be horseshoed in or feel like they're required to be part of the Jonathan. But the reality is this development is so close to the Jonathan and our amenities, and especially our park here, that is the only park that has playground equipment for children. Walden Park is another one that Josh referenced in an individual conversation I had with him. The only community amenities at Walden Park are stone picnic tables. It's not necessarily a place where you're going to find children playing or parents with young kids taking their strollers down to. So I'm very concerned about the amenity piece. And I'm just wondering if Josh can provide a little bit more information about their decision.
Sure. I guess first I'm going to point out that Kelzer Park is a city park on the north side of Pioneer Trail. And from where our sidewalks and the entrance point for our community is closer to Kelzer Park than it is to the park you're referencing down there in Jonathan in the Clover Ridge development. So as far as walking distance, you have a public park north of Pioneer Trail with a playground and a tot lot that's closer than Jonathan.
Yeah, Josh, have you traveled to Kelzer Park at non-working hours across Pioneer Trail?
I have not personally, Jeremy, no.
I think it'd be an interesting study for you to do. You're not going to see a lot of families crossing Pioneer Trail between the hours of 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. It's a very busy road, and Kelzer Park isn't even a well-known park in the area. So, and maybe the commission can speak to that as well, or what sort of traffic directional pieces or pedestrian pieces we could address on Pioneer. But Pioneer Trail is not necessarily a kid-friendly road where you're going to see a lot of crossing happening in its current state.
Was that a question to city staff?
Well, Jeremy, why don't you finish your comments for us first?
Yeah.
Sure. The only additional comments that I had were I'm wondering, I know in the initial presentation, there was a lot of conversation, or not a lot, but a little bit of conversation about how nice it was to see Lennar provide visitor parking. I don't see any in this updated concept. And also, I just have a question about, again, many of the commissioners brought it up, that very flat wall of 4 buildings. Is there any requirement between the buildings? I don't know what the code is, so I don't know if there's a specific requirement of space between the buildings. But then also in the pictures reference, I think it'd be nice if the commission would require in the 360 architecture additional dormering on the back side of the building to help break up and add some architectural details, since for the next 10 to 15 years, we're gonna have to look at this wall of townhomes.
And maybe I can bring up maybe I can bring up the exhibit showing the visitor parking. Because this is a public street, they are allowed to park on one side of the street. So they have shown 27 parking spaces on that side of the street. In addition to that, each of the homes will be able to provide at least 4 parking stalls. So from staff's analysis, they do meet the parking requirement for the project.
Liz, maybe you can talk about how this project or the projects, where have we been in the past related to provision of tot lots?
Tot lots are basically based on kind of what the market is driving for these projects. So we do look to the developer to give us a clear understanding of kind of the demographic that they're catering to in their development and providing a usable amenity area that caters to that type of demographic. So we base it on kind of their marketing standpoint of what's going to work out there.
And Liz, did they provide a comparative? Because I know they talked about Maple Grove as into what actually has been executed versus what their plan was for marketing.
Right. Josh, can you speak to that a little bit more, just based on kind of what you've provided or what has been provided in these similar other projects, and kind of how you got to the extent on this one?
Yeah, you know, and it's across the board. It's not just those 4 communities that I mentioned. I mentioned those 4 communities because this specific type of townhome is being built there. We have 3 other type of townhomes that we build throughout the Twin Cities. We probably got 50 townhome communities throughout the Twin Cities right now that we're actively building and are actively selling in. And yeah, it comes from experience that, you know, majority, I'm not saying we have 0 children in our townhome communities, but majority of our townhome buyers are single adults, empty nesters, or first-time home buyers that don't have children yet. Yes, sure, we have children in our townhome communities, but it's not a significant enough number that our tot lots that are built get utilized, you know, even a minimal amount of time. And particularly after, you know, the first 5 years or so, if there are children that move into the community initially, they grow older or their families move. And it's an amenity that is definitely the most underutilized of any community amenity that we provide. So as we stated to city staff, you know, as we're building out the community, and obviously we never build a tot lot until we're done with construction anyways, because we don't want any liability with construction traffic and children playing. So the tot lot would be the last thing to go in. And by the time the tot lot goes in, we will probably have sold, hopefully probably 50% of our community. And by that time, we will know what the demographic is for this particular, you know, townhome community. And we would prefer to make the decision at that time as Lennar based on the market, not something that's being mandated by the city. And we do build them on, you know, on our own, you know, prerogative. And it's not something that we avoid no matter what, you know. And there's certainly circumstances where we've installed tot lots that weren't required by the city.
Right. And I believe Jeremy made his comments. Kevin, do we have anyone else that wants to participate in the public hearing?
Yes, we have Greg. Greg, you can unmute now.
Thank you, Commission. Appreciate the opportunity to make comments. Greg Butler. I reside in 1355 Romeo Court on the opposite side of Jeremy, who just finished asking his questions. And I apologize up front. I joined a little bit late, so this may have been covered. If so, my question will be quickly answered. But back in May, when the petitioner put forward their original ideas and concepts, there was quite a bit of ambiguity and a lot of concern expressed by Romeo Court citizens about removal of trees along the railroad tracks in that southeast, I guess I'll call it southeast corner of this development. Has the petitioner clarified that yet to your satisfaction, that there will be minimal tree removal, or is that still an open topic?
Greg, I have their tree preservation plan up on the screen here. Hopefully you can see it, but this shows what they're going to be removing in red and then what's staying in gray. So everything along the railroad line will remain.
As I said, it will be a quick answer to my question. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Great. Thank you for joining us, Greg. Anyone else, Kevin?
Currently, no.
Okay. Being that we have no one else in the queue, I'm going to.
We did just get. Sorry,
Oh,
we did
okay.
just get. We got a late one. Elliot, you can unmute.
Thank you. So the commissioner, my name is Elliot Joan. I live on Romeo Court as well. So if Lennar typically installs tot lots, if they're selling, to a specific percentage of families with little children? Could we set a threshold that would be agreeable? So if they sell 50% and say 33% have kids, then at that point they need to install a tot lot.
From a staff perspective, we've never made that a requirement in a project. It would be very, very hard to track that. Nor has it been something that we've mandated in other projects either.
And I don't think it would be appropriate to ask homeowners whether or not they have children.
Yeah, I think either the absence or the fact that there is a tot lot is either a plus or minus selling point for that the developer has to consider when selling his units.
Okay, thank you. Just one more question then. Kind of hearing the discussion, I wonder if it'd be possible to get an answer to how many of the commissioners have been to the site? How many of you walked the site? Because by your comments, it doesn't sound like many of you have.
I walk it probably on a weekly basis.
Yeah, and I've been by there several times.
Susan Cross has been by there.
Urbanski has been by there.
Commissioner Seiler's driven along Clover Ridge Drive a few times.
Does that answer your question, Elliot?
Commissioner Lacey has been by as well.
Okay. Elliot, is that it? Any more questions?
Nope, that's all you got.
All right, thank you. Anyone else, Kevin?
Currently, no.
All right. Then at 8:02, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the commissioners for any further discussion and then ultimately a motion.
Commissioner Dahlke, this is David Riley. I just had a few questions. Can I have a few minutes?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I'd just like to take it all in, and then just a couple of things I'd like to follow up on, if I could.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So Jeremy, could you just speak to Lennar's position with the Jonathan Association to understand the point of view where you're at?
So can you guys hear me? Am I unmuted?
Oh, sorry, Jeremy. I made a mistake. I meant to direct that to Josh Metzer with Lennar Homes. My apologies, Josh.
Was the question the status of this community joining Jonathan?
Yeah, and the rationale one way or another where you're at.
Yeah, our HOA administrator and a couple other managers have discussed it, and I guess it's benefits to non-benefits, and then decision was made, I think, at this time that we're going to form an independent homeowners association, and that's the way it starts. And Lennar has an interest in that homeowners association until the community is, I believe, it's either 50 or 75% sold, at which time it's handed over completely to the board. And from there, I believe the board can make decisions on their own as far as its future. But as of right now, the decision is made to form an independent association.
So is it safe to, from that, to take away that it's a cost benefit analysis, that the additional cost of adding the Jonathan Homeowners Association on top of the development's HOA fees doesn't provide the return?
And it may not even be a fee issue. I believe it was just an overall, not a whole lot of benefits that city parks, trails, and services provide through the city as a public benefit. it wasn't really, we weren't really seeing what additional benefits would be from joining Jonathan.
Okay. Thank you, Josh. Jeremy, can I just point it to you to respond? Are there similar townhome developments adjacent to the Jonathan Association that are within the association? And and how did that occur? And what benefits are they realizing that may be realized here? Give you an opportunity to respond.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Riley. I appreciate the opportunity to respond. Yes, there are well over 40 sub-associations of homeowners similar to Pioneer Vista that exist within the association. One of the major benefits that I think isn't conveyed enough is that the power of the Jonathan Association and our reserve contribution fund, and how that helps homeowner associations and sub-associations over the years to be able to maintain common area elements and actually reduce their contributions that they need to make as a sub-association to be able to maintain things like tot lots, trails, and other common area elements. And so I think it's rather short-sighted to think about just kind of the initial cost benefit analysis, because it's really about the long run and the contributions that wouldn't need to be made to a reserve fund for common area elements where sub-associations that are currently part of the Jonathan benefit from the power of our reserve fund. I'd also state that there are townhomes that exist, specifically Arbor Fields, which is just directly down Clover Ridge Drive from this location, where we have existing sub-association. And I believe it'll be, if it hasn't already come before the Planning Commission, it will be shortly. They're looking at completing that development now and starting on the first of 3 lots that need to be developed. They are part of the Jonathan Association and looking forward to being part of the association. So does that answer your question, or does that effectively convey an appropriate response for the commission?
It does for me. Jeremy, do you have contact information for Lennar Homes? It sounds like Josh maybe isn't necessarily the right person to make that argument with, and that they're in the need to make a value decision. Yep. Do you have that contact information? Obviously, the city doesn't want to get in the middle.
Right. No, and I appreciate that. I don't. I have Josh's direct contact information, and I'm certain that he would be willing to provide me with the appropriate contact on their HOA team.
Perfect. I think that's the way to go too.
And I can do that. And I will point out that in the past, we've asked for more information, and we were essentially pointed to the website to gather the information for ourselves.
But at this point, I think with the public hearing being closed, I think it would be most appropriate to keep the comments and discussion at the Planning Commission level.
Yeah, so I would urge Jeremy and Josh to get together and get the right people involved and continue your conversation.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Riley, anything else?
Yeah, sorry, I won't drag it out, but to Josh, engineering is very developed. So impressive level of work to this point. I thought Commissioner Saylors had a good question relative to the sight lines of the entrance onto coming out of the development. I think it is a unique location with both the curvature, the grade going up to Pioneer Trail, and also the separation distance. I'd like to add a condition for your engineer, just from a traffic standpoint, to evaluate that sight line, so that when you do any signage or landscaping, that the safety of that intersection is considered fully. Would you have a problem with him going through that due diligence?
And I guess for clarification, are you talking the intersection of Clover Ridge Drive and Pioneer Trail, or the driveway to the community and Clover Ridge Drive?
Just coming out of your community to Clover Ridge Drive.
Sure. And I believe the city probably has sight distance triangle requirements that we would need to meet. Maybe Matt Clark or Liz could address that.
Yeah,
Well,
I think from
the
you've got a
city
unique
perspective-
situation here that a typical site triangle would not address. So
yeah, I think
your
your
engineer should take a
engineer
look.
can provide our engineer the detailed analysis that shows that that intersection would work. And that seems to be an appropriate condition if the rest of the planning commission wants to add it. That's part of their engineer's job, is to make sure that that intersection is safe. And that's in everybody's best interest.
All right.
So that was it. Thank you, Commissioner Dalkey.
All right. Thank you, sir. Anyone else want to comment?
This is Commissioner Olson.
Yes, sir.
I guess they brought up using the Kelzer Park as the designated park for this community. And like I said, I live here, and I cringe even let my teenagers cross over Pioneer Trail to get onto the bike trail to go to the town course. So the thought of having families walking across Pioneer Trail just to get to that designated park doesn't seem reasonable. And yeah, by just looking at Google Maps, yeah, it may seem reasonable, but it isn't as a family side of things. So I would highly recommend that the Planning Commission does put something into the requirements of having some kind of tot lot, in that open space, so that they can have a full community space available no matter what. Not required on, certain quantities or percents of sold units, but actually having that, because if they want to be a standalone, it's no different than what we did with Sagewood on them having to require them having a playground for theirs versus relying on the Jonathan Park playgrounds as well too. So that would just be my comment from that.
All right. Anyone else? Okay. I guess at this time, my only comments are, I believe that it looks like a good project. It looks like I know Susan's question about the egress windows was answered, and I believe I won't comment on the tot lot. That's not. I think that's the developer's sales point or sales, negative point. So that's up to him. That's just my opinion. So I would be looking for a motion on the project.
Hey, Liz, would you be able to expand on what the city requirements are for providing, I'll say, tot lot or playground? Because I know that we have it for, or at least recommendations within residential, but how is it different for townhome community versus single home residential?
And for townhome communities, specifically multifamily, there is a specific provision that they do have to provide a certain amount of usable open space. So that is different than a typical detached single family development. They don't have that requirement. It's basically based on the comp plan and where parks are needed in compliance with that. So to look at this a little bit different, they do have a requirement to provide usable open space, which they are in their project. And then it's kind of up to the developer. We've always kind of made it up to the developer based on the demographics they're catering to and kind of the marketability to kind of program those areas to be most successful.
And you said they are meeting that requirement, the space on the east end?
Correct. And
Okay.
then they have indicated that they will elongate or extend the pedestrian trail component as well to the stormwater pond. So we definitely see that as an added enhancement to the open space area.
Would they be able to show that in their final plan, the trail?
Yes.
Okay.
They could easily show that.
All right, I think in a motion, I guess I would want to see that also as a additional point. Do we have anyone willing to make a motion on the project?
I'm willing to make a motion if, I guess I'll make a motion with an additional condition. Is that fair, Brian?
Yeah, if you have have it in front of you, if you want to go ahead and read the motion, and then just, if you're
Well-
acceptable, I've heard two. One was the trail that I brought up,
There you
and then the second point would have been the sight line discussion that you brought up.
Okay, all right, fair enough. It was, before I do that, was there anything else any of the other commissioners you wanted to incorporate?
Looks like we're good to go, sir.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of the preliminary plat and rezoning for Pioneer Vista, Lennar, PC 2020-15 with the conditions that we've discussed, the two being the engineer's evaluation of the sight lines on Cloverfield Drive, as well as the tot lot considerations and multi-use space.
Trail.
The
Trail.
yeah, the trail was the point.
And the trail. Okay.
I will note, we already do have a condition of approval that requires that mulch trail around the stormwater pond.
Oh,
So that has been incorporated.
That's number
I'm sorry.
4.
Okay, very good. Even better. All right, thank you, Commissioner Riley, for the motion. Do we have a second?
This is Urbanski. I'll second that.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Liz, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. 1 second, please. Commissioner Brass,
Aye.
Cross,
Aye.
Lacey,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Riley,
Aye.
Seiler,
Aye.
Bovee,
Aye.
Urbanski,
Aye.
and Chairperson Dalkey.
Aye as well. Very good. I believe we had a unanimous vote there. All right, let's move on to 7B, which is also a public hearing to recommend the approval of the variance to encroach into wooded.
Chairperson Dalkey, before you
Yes.
move on, we do have to make a second motion to
Oh,
recommend.
I'm
approval
sorry,
on
you
the
are
rezoning.
absolutely right.
Yes.
We need a motion to approve the rezoning of the site from rural to PRD 76.
This is Commissioner Olson.
Susan Cross will make that motion.
Thank you, Susan. Travis, would you like to second that?
I will. Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, all those in favor or any discussion on the rezoning issue? Pardon?
Let's do the roll call.
Yes. All right, very good. Liz, would you do the roll on that, please?
Yes. Brass,
Aye.
Cross,
Aye.
Lacey,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Riley,
Aye.
Seiler,
Aye.
Bovee,
Aye.
Urbanski,
Aye.
and Chairperson Dalkey.
Aye. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Kevin, for picking me up there. All right, 7B is also a public hearing to recommend the approval of the variance to encroach into wooded steep slope and setbacks. Karyn and Nick Acevedo, PC number 2020-16. Liz, if you would, please.
Yes, one moment. I'm going to share my screen for the second time. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So as Chairperson Dalkey referenced, we do have a variance application in front of us specifically for registered land survey number 117, tract B, proposed by Nick and Karyn Acevedo. It's for the encroachment into a wooded steep slope and the associated setbacks with that. So to give you an understanding of where this site is located, it is quite hidden, but I've highlighted it here in orange. It's basically kind of on the eastern edge of the Hammers property, which just recently got approved for their final plat. Highway 41 is on essentially their eastern edge. Cardinal Street is to the north, which also provides access into this site and the adjacent site. So this adjacent site here is formally or legally known as Tract A of RLS 117. So when we kind of go back and forth between Tract A and B, Tract A is the existing lot, and then Tract B is the vacant lot. Here's a more zoomed in perspective, just giving you an understanding of kind of the topography of the overall area, plus kind of what's happening in and around the site itself. So as you can see, the property is composed of two separate PIDs or two separate parcels, but it is one contiguous parcel as you look at it. So in terms of a background of approvals and so forth, the RLS number 117 was formally approved and platted by the City Council on May 18th of 1998. In this plat, there were two lots that were created. Tract A, again, is the lot for the existing home next to Tract B, and then Tract B was basically subdivided off of Tract A for a future residence. So it was always anticipated at that time that a future residence would locate on this parcel. And during those approvals, a couple easements were put in place on Tract B just for perpetuation of certain pieces. So one of them being a scenic and drainage easement on the north side of the property, and this was meant to protect the ravine system that's present there on the north side. And then additionally, they also put in a cross-access easement for both Tract A and Tract B to be able to utilize the same driveway into this area. So a couple of things on this property. It's currently zoned medium density residential, which is classified as R2. So no rezoning does have to occur on this lot. It's already zoned to have a residence on it. The lot itself is comprised of approximately 1 acre in size. As I noted before, it's two separate parcels, but it is a contiguous piece of property. City utilities are in close proximity, and this lot in particular will have to hook up to city utilities when they do start to build. Just noting again that there's a scenic easement on the north side, so that will remain intact as a part of this overall proposal. And as you can see in the aerial exhibit, the entire property is wooded. So it does bring some challenges with that. They did survey the property to get an understanding of kind of the condition of the trees out there. So in total, 89 trees were surveyed. So those are trees that are 6 inches in caliber or more. And of those 89 trees, 6 of them were considered in good condition. And then 4 of those were considered in great condition. It was the applicant's emphasis to save those trees, and they have done so with the plan that they're proposing tonight. And being that it is entirely wooded, there were wooded steep slopes delineated on the site, more so in the central portion of the site, which again adds additional challenges to the development of the site. And then lastly, there's also a water main line on the southern portion that dissects the site. So again, additional challenges that the development of this property poses. So with that, the property owners are requesting a variance specifically from the zoning ordinance section 9.9.3, which is the setback from steep slopes. And just from a high level perspective, the reasoning they are requesting this variance is to be able to build a residence on the property. Without a variance, they would essentially not be able to build or have a driveway running through the property. So with that, they do have hardship, which they've stated to be the presence of the wooded steep slopes on the property, the setbacks that apply to those wooded steep slopes, and then also the presence of a water main line. Wanted to show kind of a graphic exhibit kind of showing all of these different pieces of the property that do pose some challenges with the buildability of it. So the property is outlined in purple. So these are all the property lines here. The scenic and drainage easement is on the north side of the site, as we've indicated before. So again, this area is meant to be protected perpetually. The yellow is basically the wooded steep slope setback. So that encompasses the 50-foot building setback and then a 30-foot no grade, no mow. Excuse me. And then the wooded steep slopes were delineated through this, basically the central portion of the site. So we were able to walk that and kind of determine the actual edge of those in the field. And they do kind of wrap around the property as well. It does drop off quite a bit on the edges here. So the topography is definitely a challenge in itself as well. And then I've also highlighted where the water main line is that they've also are trying to avoid with building on this property. So in red is basically what is left over when you apply all of the setbacks for the property from wooded steep slopes and then for the zoning district, and then also staying outside of the water main line. But usually you wouldn't build up to the water main line. So even with a buffer, it will shave this down even more so. So just wanted to give a visual on kind of what the overall physical challenges of this lot are. And this is their overall site plan for the property. Again, they are proposing a single family residence on this property, which is in line with what it was guided for and what it was approved for back in 1998. So as you can see, even on this drawing, the basis for where they're locating the building is essentially to locate it in the flattest portion of the site, also outside of where the water main line is, get it as close to kind of that western edge as possible, providing that separation from the adjacent residents. They also wanted to provide a driveway that really followed the contours of the topography as well, so that the slope of the driveway wasn't exceeding what city requirements dictate, which is 10%. So they are staying under that slope requirement, kind of with the curvature of the driveway. So those are a couple pieces they looked at in terms of where locating the residence. In addition, with the tree survey overlaid on the proposal, their goal was to try to save as much as they can, and specifically they wanted to save the good and great conditioned trees. So they're trying to stay kind of relatively outside of those critical root zones with the layout of the site. And with the 89 trees that they're proposing, they are only taking down roughly 18 trees for the driveway and for the residence itself. So there will still be basically a majority of the trees left to kind of provide that nice wooded nature of the site. And then here's kind of that more simplified version of the tree survey showing where those good and great trees are. So you have the great trees in green, and then you have the good ones kind of in that ravine system. So those wouldn't be touched either way. But again, their goal was to save these trees as a part of the overall plan. They've also included their building drawings. Again, they tried to design the house itself to be built more upwards rather than outwards, so that they weren't impacting more ground coverage and tree removal as a part of that. They'll have a tuck under garage, which is atypical to most homes that are built these days, which are more attached and protruding out from the home. So again, they try to choose a design that was more compact and less invasive into the overall site. So as we look at a variance, there's a couple things that we look at to review such requests. Again, these are not requests that we encourage unless there is an apparent undue hardship on the property. And when we talk about an undue hardship, I've included the definition here, and I'll just speak to it so that we're all hearing it. But it means the property in question cannot be put to a reasonable use if used under conditions allowed in the official controls. The plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner. And the variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. And then so forth. So there are specific questions that we ask or kind of review and evaluate with the proposal itself and in order to grant a variance. So they are listed here. They were listed in the staff report as well. And I'll kind of speak to the findings to these questions. A couple to note that when someone is asking for a variance, it should not be greater than necessary to accomplish what the landowner is hoping to do or what their objective on the site is. Another question is, were there other alternatives to the actual request that were explored that would eliminate the need for a variance? Conforming to city code, which essentially in this case would be setbacks and delineation of wooded steep slopes, could the property be put to reasonable use, and so forth. So this kind of gets to the findings of how staff has evaluated the variance request, what they're put up against with the physical characteristics of the site, what's unique to this property, and what are the findings to granting a variance. So we did list out 5 findings of granting approval to the variance. So the first one being that the property in question cannot be put to reasonable use under the current regulations and setbacks. And to elaborate on that just a little bit further, if they were to meet the setbacks and wooded steep slope requirement, they essentially wouldn't be able to get a driveway in there, and they would be limited to a house of 500 square feet to kind of fit into the mold of that buildable area. So 500 square feet is definitely not the size of a house. It's more so the size of kind of a medium-sized accessory structure. So they definitely do meet that determination that the property cannot be put to reasonable use based on those conditions. Second, staff feels the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to their property, not created by the landowner. So for this site in particular, it's not the landowner's fault that there's wooded steep slope delineations on the property. This is a natural formation, and therefore they're kind of left to deal with that. Thirdly, staff also feels that the variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the area. So back in 1998, when this plat was approved, it was always anticipated that it was to be built on. At that time, it was not noted of wooded steep slopes or anything like that. So there wasn't any initial indication that there was going to be challenges to developing on this lot. So again, what they're proposing out there is a residence, and it will certainly fit in with the surrounding character of the area, which is going to be residential on both the north, east, south, and west sides of this site. The fourth finding is there is not a reasonable alternative to the variance. And usually when we look at reasonable alternatives, it's looking at different locations, less impact, and so on. So as we kind of evaluated that, we came to the conclusion that the home and driveway are proposed in a location that would be less invasive on the healthy trees or the great trees as determined by an arborist, as well as less impact on the wooded steep slope. They've chosen the flattest location on the lot itself, and they also put the building more so on the westerly side, which would also provide more separation between their home and the existing home on Tract A. And then additionally, the water main on the south side of the site also prohibits them from moving the building or their residence far south away from the wooded steep slope. So they are pretty confined in terms of where they can actually put a building pad. So again, they're proposing something, again, that kind of meets the flat area as well as provides the least amount of impact to the wooded steep slope. And then lastly, the fifth finding, so what they're proposing for a home and driveway is not greater than necessary to accomplish the landowner's objective. Again, they were intentional in the design of the home and the driveway to be sensitive to the context. Again, with the home, they provided certain elements like a tuck under garage and building up being a 2-story home versus a rambler to kind of minimize the impact on the site itself. And then with the driveway, they are also proposing something that's kind of less than what you typically see on a single family lot. It's a 15-foot wide driveway, and typically we see anywhere around the 24-foot wide driveways at a minimum, and sometimes much larger than that for those 3-stall garage homes. So again, they're proposing something in terms of the house size. It's very around the average home size, and then the driveway is definitely smaller than what you typically see. And then in addition to that, they're saving a majority of the trees on the site, and specifically the ones that are in good and great condition. So with that, we are asking you to make a motion tonight to recommend approval of the variance request to encroach into the wooded steep slope and its setbacks for a new residence on Tract B of RLS number 117, specifically a variance from section 9.9.3 of the zoning ordinance. So that's based on the findings that are listed in the staff report, in addition to the conditions that are also listed in that staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions. I want to say the applicant is also in the audience. I can't confirm, but we can certainly ask if they are available for questions too.
Okay. Does the commission have any questions for Liz before we open up the public hearing?
Hey, Liz, do slope stability concerns, do they ever get considered during the process of design when you're in a wooded steep slope like this and planning to take the trees off of it?
Yes, I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons why we have this ordinance in place. Not only is it, I mean, more so it's meant to protect kind of those natural amenities within the city, but also to protect ravine systems as well that have those really steep characteristics. So yes, that's definitely one of the elements that we do review as a part of the request. Is slope
Also,
stability.
the city engineer reviews the site grading plan in detail when that would come in, especially on something like this project.
Yeah, thanks.
Did the applicants own this property back in 1998 when it was originally approved?
No, they did not.
Have any of the setback rules changed since they've purchased the property?
No, they have not.
Well, the wooded steep slope may have. That's a recent addition to the building code or zoning ordinance, excuse me. When did we change that? 3 years ago, Liz?
The wooded steep slope?
Yeah.
No, I think it was definitely before my time here. So it's been, I don't know, 7
Setbacks?
years.
We did that with the whole section 9 changes.
Oh, okay. Well, it was definitely when I was not here, so I can't determine exactly when that was done. But it would have been probably 5 or 6 years ago.
All right. Not hearing anything else, I will open up the public hearing at 8:41. Kevin, do we have anybody on the line that wants to contribute?
I do not see anyone yet. If anyone does have something to say, you can just press participants and then raise your hand, and we'll know you would like to speak. Yeah, I'm still not seeing anyone.
Okay. That being said, I'm gonna close the public hearing at 8:42 and bring it back to the commission for further discussion and a motion.
Commissioner Urbanski, the city's put planning and zoning in place to protect the integrity of the entire city. But once in a while, you just have to look at a piece of land and kind of use common sense on things. And having studied this little parcel and what the options are over there, this is one of those that just makes common sense, I think. So with that, I would recommend, or I would make the motion to recommend approval of a variance request to encroach into the wooded steep slope and its setbacks for a new residence on track B of RLS number 117, section 9.9.3 of the zoning ordinance based on the findings listed in the staff report.
Commissioner Lacey would second.
Commissioner Cross would like to add a condition. Did that come through this time?
Yeah, we
Commissioner
can
Cross
hear you.
would like to add a condition. Sometimes I'm getting muted when I don't touch it, so I don't understand that.
Well, go ahead, Susan. We can hear you.
You hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Because of the ravine system, water moving off of this property is a concern of mine. I would like to add a condition that the driveway be permeable, so it does not end up being a nice little speedway for the water to go down and catch into the ravine. Do you understand what I mean? It
It-
slopes to the ravine.
Yep. And to answer kind of your comment there, they are planning to do permeable pavers for the
Yeah, I
driveway.
thought I had read that in the,
Yep. But we
Okay.
can certainly make it a condition.
I would like it a condition.
I'll amend my motion to include that then.
Thank
very,
you.
very good. Is that okay with you, Carl?
Yes, second.
All right, then we do have a motion and a second with the added condition. Any more conversation? All right, hearing none. Liz, would you do a roll on that, please?
Sure. It's probably going to come up, but that's all right. Brass,
Aye.
Cross,
Aye.
Lacey,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Riley,
Aye.
Seiler,
Aye.
Bovee,
Aye.
Urbanski,
I
and Chairperson Delkey.
Aye. All right. Thank you. All right, let's move on to, I guess for other business tonight, we just have to receive in some meeting minutes. 8A, I receive in the June 29th, July 6th, and July 20th city council meeting minutes. And 8AII receive in the July 6th EDA meeting minutes. So those have been received into our minutes. I guess all that's left is if anybody has any additional comments, we do a little roundtable and then we can call it a night. And go ahead. I don't care about any order if anybody, and if you don't have anything, that's fine too.
It was brought up earlier today by Kevin, but I'm super excited about county, is it 44, 140 Big Woods Boulevard? Those of us that live up the hill, we're all really happy to have that project coming to completion. And I think it'll be a great improvement to the area, so.
And it looks good too, I think anyway.
Yeah. I've been asking for a trail to get down to the city for about 5 years now. So I walked down there with my dog this week and it was lovely. Yeah.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
You call for a ride to get back up the hill?
Dog pulled her up the hill. All right, anyone else? All right, I don't have anything either, except I guess we pointed out 41 is going to be, it probably closed tonight, up by 169 for about 3 or 4 weeks. So keep that in mind. Pretend that we're flooded right now for about a month.
Is that in both directions? So you can't hit 169 at all?
I believe it is.
Okay.
I think it's closed in both directions.
Okay.
So, and beyond that, I guess I would, if you feel comfortable, please patronize our local establishments and help keep them afloat until times get better. And well, I guess we'll continue to Zoom along here until we can all get back together. So that being said, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
By
We have a
Cross.
motion and a second. Do we need a roll for adjournment? Go ahead, Liz, one more time.
Sure. I would think I'd have this down by now, but I don't. Brass,
Aye.
Cross,
Aye.
Lacey,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Riley,
Aye.
Seiler,
Aye.
Bovee,
Aye.
Urbanski,
I
and Chairperson Delkey.
Aye. All right. We are adjourned, and I'd like to thank Kevin and Liz and Mr. Wright for your technical help and anybody who I didn't mention.